Hello, hello, family. Good evening. So we are so excited that you all are here. Yeah, we are going to have a wonderful show tonight. We're going to be talking about foods, right? Foods. Should I eat? What should I eat? So we get that question all the time about different disease processes, whether it's diabetes, someone is trying to lose weight, what foods interfere with their thyroid, adrenal insufficiency, low testosterone. So all of these different things, these different hormones, all these different conditions, and we're going to talk about that tonight. So glad that you're here. If you are new to the channel, if you are new to our show, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E, and the E stands for endocrinology. And I help people understand their bodies so that they can take charge of their lives, avoid complications, and live healthy, fulfilling lives. And we're going to get started here. If you are new, just go ahead and put new in the comments, right? Say, I'm new in the comments. Just some housekeeping. We're going to be asking questions, answering your questions. If you do have a question, go ahead and put a Q in front of that question and we will get to it, okay? Once again, you got a question, put a Q in front of it and we'll get to that. So our question for tonight, I got a question for you guys, right? Have you ever been on a diet or wondered what kind of food you should eat? Have you ever been on a diet or wondered what kind of food you should eat? Either yes or no. Put that in the comments, and we'll kind of look at those. Hello, hey. Is that Lala? Hey, mommy guy, good to see you. Good to see you there. And Maria saying hello to Ruth and to Anthony. Welcome to our show tonight. Glad that you are here. All right, so foods. You know, a lot of what we do, as we mentioned before, revolves around food. And if you hear me talk for any length of time, you will hear me say this over and over and over. So many things that we do in our lives revolve around food. Our celebrations are revolving around food. If we have a funeral, there's food there. If we have a baby that's born, there's food there. If we're depressed, if we're anxious, if we're happy, if we're sad, there's always food. And there's always this concern about what types of food should I be eating for different things. People who are on diets, they always ask, am I eating the right food? Is there a different type of food I should eat for this condition? I'm trying to lose weight. My thyroid is not working. I'm fatigued. I've got a rash. I can't sleep. I have low testosterone. I have adrenal insufficiency and all those things. The question is, what role does food play? If you read books, if you look on the internet, if you talk to any kind of specialist, a lot of people are now starting to talk about food as medicine. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, I said it. That's right. Food is medicine. So what foods can I eat, right, to replace some of the prescription medication that I'm on? Or is there something I can eat that replaces the prescription medication? One of the big things that we talk about all the time is the thyroid. And the thyroid really is kind of the stepchild of the endocrine system. It gets blamed for everything. Anytime someone has something that's going wrong, they're always saying, is it my thyroid? My thyroid is causing it. My weight's gone up. It's my thyroid. I can't sleep. It's my thyroid. My heart's going fast. It's my thyroid. And so it is one of the glands that so often will get blamed for things. And so people ask, they go on the internet and they scour all these websites and they go into groups and they come back and they ask about foods for their thyroid. And so tonight, what we want to do is we want to field some of your questions, right? We want you to ask questions. If there's something that you're suffering from, a disease process or someone you know, right? Or you've always had an idea of, well, maybe this food can help me. We want you to put those in the comments. Okay, and we'll get to those. So let's see. So we got Lala said yes. So she's been on a diet or wondered what kind of foods. Here's one. Monica says all my life, right? So she's wondering all her life about different foods. Maria says yes, that she's wondered as well. Anthony Love, good to see you, says yes. So we got all these people, and so yes, there are all these questions that we have about food and how food relates to what we do. So let's go ahead and let's jump right in and let's see if we got some questions. There were some that we have. Let's see. So I'm gonna grab this one real quick. Yeah, so remember, just put a Q in front of your question, and I just make myself small there for a minute. Okay, yeah, so go ahead and let's get in front of this one. Oops. There we go. So here's an interesting question. It says, please, could you give me ideas for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? So that's a big one, right? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So this one actually needs a little bit of backstory, if you will. Okay, this one needs a little bit of backstory. And let me do something here real quick, and so I could stop making myself small. And Lala, if you're on, you don't see me doing that, right? Let's see. Let's move this one over here. And let's get rid of the question. Okay, here we go. All right, there you go. So that'll work better now. Okay, so can you give me some idea about breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And so a little bit of backstory. We're going to be talking about so many different conditions, and there are some general principles that I want you to pay attention to as we get into this discussion. We want to make sure that we're eating the least refined foods that we can, foods that are whole, right? So whole foods, and stay away from refined things, right? Now, when I say stay away from, people, there are extremes to anything that we do. So as you're looking at foods, and even as we talk about some of the foods that we're going to be discussing, we want to make sure that we are balanced in all that we do. So when we're looking at meals, we want to make sure that we're eating a balanced meal, right? We want to make sure we're eating a balanced meal. So that is not too high in carbs, not missing carbs, right? Because there are carbs. Carbs are important, but we want to make sure that we're doing that. So if you hear anybody talk about breakfast, a lot of people will talk about cereals, right? Breakfast cereals. And while there are wonderful things that you will find in cereals, there are a lot of cereals that are highly refined, right? So all those cereals that have all the colors, and they've got the flakes and you know what I'm talking about, right? You can go to the store, and if you walk down the aisle, it's like a rainbow, right? So we want to try to avoid those. The same thing for lunch and supper. As you are looking at preparing those, try to make sure that you're sticking to whole foods and cutting back on the refined foods. Okay, so awesome. Love it. Love it. So that's a good question there. So let's see. So Monica's going to jump right in there. She said, what's a good heart healthy and diabetic diet? Heart healthy and diabetic diet. And so once again, as we look at these questions, the backstory is we want to make sure that we're minimizing the refined foods. Now, why is the refined food? Why am I harping on that? And the reason for that is that the refined foods tend to be a lot heavier in calories, empty calories sometimes. They get into the stomach and they don't have the same amount of stretch. So your body responds to the stretch of your stomach. So when food goes into the stomach, when the stomach stretches, it sends a signal to the brain, and the brain at a certain point says, I'm full, right? But because the foods are so dense now and they have so many empty calories, before we used to be able to eat a whole plate of food before the stomach got filled. But now, if you go out, you can find a piece of food, candy, cookie, whatever, that is as small as this, right? And it has the same calories as the entire plate. So when this goes into the stomach, the stomach doesn't stretch. And so its stomach does not send a signal to the brain that says we're full. And so we continue eating. Okay, so that's one of the ideas behind the refined foods. There are some other things as well, because it's high in sugar or sugar substitutes and so forth. So when we talk, and I'm going to take those separately, when we talk about a diabetic diet, the idea behind diabetic diet, right, and the diet word, you know I have an issue with that. But anyway, we want to make sure that we're eating things that do not drive our blood sugar up as high and keep our blood sugars high as long, right, as it normally does. So we want to minimize the height of the rise of blood sugar, and we want to decrease the timing of the blood sugar or how it's high. So what you want to do is, when you're looking for foods, you want to look for foods that you can eat enough of that fills the stomach, right? So once again, that idea of stretch, that doesn't drive the blood sugar up and it doesn't keep the blood sugar long, right? So that's the principle behind the diabetic diet. Okay, and within those principles, there are a lot of things that you can throw in there. We can give a list, and we can talk about that here in a minute. The heart healthy diet, right? And this one gets a little interesting, because our concept of what is happening in the heart is changing, right? We used to think that it was just a matter of those vessels getting clogged, but we now know that there's inflammation going on in those vessels. And where's the inflammation coming from? From some of the foods that we eat. That's right. In fact, it has been shown in several studies that if we can decrease or change the foods that we eat, that we're able to reverse. That's right. I use the word reverse. We're able to reverse some of the blockages that we see in the coronary arteries. Okay. So that's a long way of answering those questions. And I'm sure we'll get some more other questions here in a minute. All right. Let's see. Here's a good one. Right. Mommy Guy Lala says, what food with thyroid problems like me need to be avoided? Wow. What foods do we need to avoid? So she came at it the other direction, right? So we're talking about the foods that we should eat. And she said, well, what foods should I not eat? and that actually is a very good way of getting at that, Lala. So there are a lot of things that you will read, but there's probably two main groups of foods that people talk about. So I'll give those, and then we'll go into a little bit more of a discussion about it. So a lot of people say that you should avoid eating foods that are high in gluten, right? Or wheat and soy. So wheat and soy. So that's what, if you read all of that's going on, what people are saying, those are the big things that they talk about. There are other people who also talk about, and this isn't avoid, this is, they tell you should eat foods that have high iodine and so forth. That's a whole another discussion. But the idea behind those types of foods, the ones I mentioned, the wheat and the soy, is that the body, we believe, is having an immune response, an autoimmune response when it comes to thyroid. And so the inflammation and the autoimmune process is what causes the thyroid to misbehave. That's what causes the thyroid to begin making less and less and less of the hormones that it's supposed to, and so the body then can't function. And if you remember, the thyroid is responsible for energy metabolism. So if we have foods that we're eating that's causing an autoimmune response or causing inflammation, then that can cause the thyroid to misbehave and cause it to be difficult. In fact, there are some places, if you read some of the studies, it shows that people who have Hashimoto's, right, autoimmune thyroiditis, which is the most common cause in the United States. Outside of the United States, it's iodine deficiency. So if you have someone who has an autoimmune disease and they have those high titers of thyroid peroxidase, that sometimes it's more challenging to manage their disease process. Now, talking to folks who are outside of the United States, where the most common cause of low thyroid is iodine deficiency, right, is getting iodine in the diet, right, is what we want to do. And we want to avoid, and let me talk about the opposite, right? So things that can cause problems for the thyroid. One is if we put too much iodine, right? So if you're in a place where there's iodine deficiency, getting iodine in the diet is great. But if you're in a place where, in like the United States, where iodine is not a problem, then putting too much iodine can be a problem. Okay, so that's the front and the back of that question. All right, let's see. All right, let's come over here. Let's see what other questions we have. Let's grab this one. How many carbs can I eat? How many carbs can I eat? You guys have very good questions. I like that one. So how many carbs can I eat? So if you look at the typical diet, most of us eat more carbs than that's recommended. For diabetics, people who live with diabetes, I typically recommend that they have 45 grams of carbs per meal, or 135 per day. If you read books and go into the studies, there's a slight difference in the numbers that people will tell you. They'll tell you 50 grams per meal, right? 150 per meal. We tend to tell people 45 grams per meal because that is a reasonable number. Most people actually will eat between 80 and 150 grams of carbs per meal. Right? So 45, and there's no magic in 45, right? So it's not like if you eat 45, everything is great. 45 is a good number because it's less than we typically eat, and it gives you enough carbs to get the energy that you need in the body. Okay? So that's why we use 45. And most of what you will read will talk about 45 grams of carbs. So good question. All right. Let's see. Here's one. So we're heavy in carbs tonight, right? So this was said, what is an easy way to measure carbs? What's an easy way to measure carbs? And there are a lot of different ways to do it, but if you're out there, right, I want you to hold your hand, right? And I want you to form a cup, right? So a cup in your hand. And if you can fit it in here, right, that's about 15 grams of carbs. That's right, 15 grams of carbs. So if you're looking at your plate, and I don't have a plate with me, but if you're looking at your plate and you are looking, you say, okay, there's 1 cup, 2 cups, 3 cups. And when I say cup, I'm talking about in here, right? Not necessarily a cup, a measuring cup. That's about 15. So if you can put whatever's on your plate in your hand 3 times, then that's 45 grams of carbs. So that's a simple way of doing it. And easy, right? So it doesn't require you sitting at the table with a calculator saying, oh, okay, 1 carb, 2 carb, 3 carbs. That's not the idea. Now, if we have people who are living with diabetes and we're trying to figure out how much insulin to take, right, then we get a little bit more specific in how we do. But the cup of the hand is an estimate of how we can do that. Okay, very good. So great question, guys. I love that. So let's take a break from those questions here, and let me wrap this one up. So if you guys have not already done so, please remember to find us on all of our social media platforms, LinkedIn, TikTok, of course, YouTube, and Twitter. And then if you are interested in supporting what we're doing here, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Dr. Dwain Woode. If you have other questions or other ideas of things that you want us to deal with and you don't want to put them in the comments, go ahead and send us an email at drdwainwoode@gmail.com. On our Twitter feed, we have a lot of inspirational thoughts. We've got some recipes there talking about sleep and good healthy habits. On our TikTok, we've got some little snippets where we're sharing some detailed information about various topics, various subjects. And you can even get on there and see me do try to do a dance. Okay. Now, the last time I made a challenge, right? I said to you guys, if you put in the comments a TikTok, right, something that you see that you want me to try, then I will do that, right? So if you do that tonight, right, between tonight and the next time we go live, we'll take those and we will try to do them, right? So the last time I did that, nobody stepped up to the challenge. So we're going to do that. We're going to say that to you guys here tonight again, right? So if there's something you see on TikTok that you want me to try, go ahead and do it. And you may have to help me work on it, okay? But we're very excited about that. Awesome. All right. So let's see. Hey, Jeanette. Good evening, everybody. Love to see you. And Maria saying hello to everybody. Awesome. Love that. All right. So let's see. What other questions do we have? Remember, if you do have some questions, put it in the chat and we'd be happy to do that. Now, here's something for you. In the chat, right? I saw Lala put in a question about thyroid, but what other diseases do you have questions about? Right? Just jot them down. Just put them in the chat. What other diseases, or other issues that you see? Or if you just want to just put some foods, right? So what other food do you have questions about? Right? Just type the food name in there and we'll see if we can get to those. Okay? So awesome. Hey Soul said, hey Dr. Woode. What's up, man? How are you? Good to see you. All right. So you guys go ahead and do that and we will we'll get to those questions and foods or disease processes. Okay, so those are the two things I want you to do. And then of course, the TikTok. All right, let's see. Let's take a look at this question here. Oh, that's the one that we just did. Okay, so let's get that one off. Okay, so what is a good substitute for milk, for flour, for sugar, for pasta? Wow, that's a big one, right? Milk, flour, sugar, and pasta. So let's get that off and then let's answer that question. All right, so milk. So there is, if you follow the folks who are vegan, or even some that are vegetarian, one of the big things they talk about, and we used to talk a lot about soy, but I think soy has gotten a bad rap over time, and so now everybody talks about almond milk, right? So almond milk is a good substitute for the for regular milk, and people talk about whether they get the same components, the calcium and so forth, from almond milk as they do for regular milk, and the answer is you can. Yes. Okay. So almond milk is a good substitute. In terms of sugar, there are a lot of sweeteners that are out there. Once again, you want to stay away from the highly refined sweeteners that are there. People ask a lot about the sugar substitutes, and I'm not going to call any names of ones, but one of the things that I have an issue with some of the substitutes is that they cause you to get hungry. And so you put a substitute in whatever, your food, your beverage, and you drink and or eat that, and the blood sugars don't go up, and we think nothing happens in the body because it's really nothing. But all of the signals that occur when you are actually eating food can be triggered, or many of those signals can be triggered by the substitutes. And so later on, your insulin level goes up, your hunger increases, and so you become hungry and you go and you try to find something else to eat. So that's the substitutes. Honey is a good one that a lot of people talk about using. And once again, with all of these, you want to be temperate, and that is balanced in when you're using them. In terms of flour, and I'm assuming that this is someone who is interested in avoiding some of the allergenic components of wheat and so forth, but a lot of other grains can be turned into flour, right? In fact, there's almond flour, and we've used that in our home before. So check for if you're interested in avoiding wheat flour. There are a lot of other things that can be made into flour. So good. All right. Let's see. So very, very good questions, guys. Very good. I like that. Let's see. Anthony Love. Let's see. What does Anthony say? Diabetes and high blood pressure. Yeah. So diabetes and high blood pressure. So those are the disease processes. And those are two big ones, right, Anthony? In fact, diabetes and high blood pressure are part of when we think of metabolic syndrome, right? We don't put diabetes in metabolic syndrome, but high blood pressure is there. And the things that lead to diabetes, like insulin resistance, obesity, and so forth, will be there as well. So very good. I like that. Thank you for putting that in. Let's see. What does Soul say? I say, I would love to know more about thyroids in... Oh, it's Hey, Corey. How are you, man? I didn't recognize you. Okay, yeah. Hey, Corey. Good. Glad that you're on. So Corey said he would love to hear more or know more about the thyroid. And so we'll do a brief description here. But if you go back, Corey, we did a show maybe 3 weeks ago where we talked about hypothyroidism. We need to do one on hyperthyroidism and thyroid nodules. So those are two of the other things that we see in thyroid. So hypothyroidism, not enough thyroid hormone. Hyper, so overactive, so too much. Thyroid nodules or lumps, and then thyroid cancer. Okay, and we did a video where we interviewed Dr. Nita Dang, who's one of the ENT doctors, the ear, nose, and throat doctors here in town, several months ago on treating thyroid cancer. So go back and take a look at some of those. Okay, but the thyroid is the body's regulator of energy. Right, it helps to regulate energy metabolism. So it's kind of like, here we have Huntsville Utilities, and Huntsville Utilities sends power from the utility company to my house, right? So if I want power, I turn the switch on. And if Huntsville Utilities, the power company, goes away or goes down for some reason during a power outage, or one of the lines becomes broken or damaged, I can turn that switch on all I want, and guess what? Nothing is working at the house, right? So the thyroid is kind of like that. So the thyroid allows the body to use energy. And so when the thyroid is not working well, then we can have lots of things that look like, and a lot of them, sometimes it comes as fatigue. Let me say that again. A lot of times it comes as fatigue, right? So fatigue, weight gain, low heart rate, right? If the thyroid is not functioning, if it's really, really low, you can have a low heart rate. And so lots of other different symptoms that you can get. For the overactive thyroid, you can think of like the utility company like pumping energy to my house, right? So along that wire, and at my house, all the appliances are blowing up, like the microwave goes out, the refrigerator, because there's so much energy that's coming at it. And that's what having overactive thyroid is like. All of the processes in the body are supercharged, and people become fatigued because they feel like they're running a marathon all the time, right? So they're using up all that energy, and so they get tired. So that's so Corey, that's a brief way of saying that. Let's see. Natalie says, is gut health a real thing? If yes, what should we eat to have great gut health and lose weight? Wow. That is a power-packed question. Power-packed question. So gut health is a real thing, okay? And then let me kind of back up and say, so when we talk about the gut, when we talk about the GI tract, from the lips all the way through to the other side, right? That is open to the environment. Okay? So anything that touches that area, right, goes into the mouth all the way through the body. Either it can get into the system, right, And we have processes that absorb, right? So we absorb food, we absorb nutrients and from the food that we eat, and vitamins and so forth. So the body has the ability to absorb that. But there's some stuff that we don't want going through, right? So it's kind of like, I don't know. So I've got, let me use this for example, right? So this is a lens cap for one of the cameras that I have here. And so this is plastic. And the reason that it's here is because there are certain things that I don't want getting through. Okay? So if water falls on this, right now, because of how it's packaged, the water cannot get into and get onto the lens, right? But if I get a hole in this for some reason, and water falls on it, the water can get through and it can get onto the lens. And so the GI tract, the gut, if you will, is kind of the same way. It is a protective barrier that is there to help absorb food and to help repel other things. And, we have a process that excretes things as well, right? That's where stool comes from. But, so stuff gets into the stool and the bulk of food that doesn't get absorbed moves out. So if there are holes in the GI tract, then things that shouldn't get in can get in. Well, what are some reasons why we would have a hole in the GI tract, in the gut? Well, inflammation, right? And that's why inflammation is a big thing whenever you talk about gut health, because inflammation, you can think about if your arm becomes inflamed. For instance, you go out to wherever, right? You get into poison ivy, or you get a scratch, or some other process. If you look at your arm, what do you see? Well, there are places where the skin is broken. And the same thing happens in the gut, in the GI tract. So that if the GI tract, the mucosa, gets broken for some reason, because of inflammation, because of foods that we've eaten, right? Because of some infection that we have, or something that we swallow, or because we are not doing a good job of maintaining that. Right? It's kind of like when you get ulcers in the mouth. Well, what causes that? Well, whatever it is, the same thing that causes that can also cause an ulcer elsewhere in the GI tract, because the same kind of cells sometimes will show up there. And so having a good process for doing that. So the other question is, well, what do we do to do that? What do we do to help that? So everybody talks about probiotics, right? So probiotics, as you know, our GI tract has bacteria. And so probiotics are good bacteria that we can eat, that helps to replenish helps to replenish the GI tract. And then there are prebiotics, which are things that we can eat to help build up the bacteria that's there, right? So basically we're trying to replace the good bacteria, and then trying to avoid foods that are inflammatory, right? So there are some things that are inflammatory. People will talk about nightshade plants like tomatoes, or eggplants, or even peppers, right? Bell pepper, not spicy peppers, but bell peppers. So those are pro-inflammatory. So if you have a GI tract or gut that's having a problem, sometimes avoiding those foods can help as well. Very good question. Let's see. Here's one from Jennifer. She says, is having too much protein bad, such as protein shakes, meats, and legumes? Wow. Love it, Jennifer. Love it, love it, love it. And so is eating too much protein bad? So whenever your body gets too much protein, what do you think it does with it? It excretes it. Okay. Now, there are some people who have disease processes where they limit the amount of protein that they want them to have. Okay. So sometimes if you talk to people who have kidney disease, their doctor will talk to them about how much protein they're eating. All right. There are people who add protein to their diet, to what they're eating, because they are in a process where they need more protein. So people who are doing bodybuilding, right? So their bodies are breaking down their muscles, and so they take protein in to build the protein up. Okay, and just to answer a question that you didn't necessarily ask, but the difference between protein from meats, or not the difference, but can you get enough protein from legumes if you're not eating meat? And the answer is yes, right? You can get enough protein in legumes. In fact, for I think last year or the year before, the American Diabetic Association added to their list a plant-based diet as a means of managing diabetes. Yeah, so they it's there, right? Which we didn't have before, and so a lot of people are now talking about protein. So I'm gonna stop there. There's some other nuances. I hope that answered the question, Jennifer. If not, go ahead and drop another comment in the, or another word in the comment. Okay. And Jeanette said, I think I missed your question. Let me see. Okay, let's grab this one. Sorry, Jeanette. Let's see. I like bread. How many slices of whole wheat bread can I eat per day? Oh, wow. So, good question, Jeanette. Good question. And let's see. So when we talk about how much bread to eat, this goes back to our idea of carbohydrates, right? Of limiting the carbs that we are eating to 45 grams per meal. Now, that is what we tell people who live with diabetes they should do to help manage their blood sugars. But those same principles can be translated to people who are not living with diabetes, right? If you have normal blood sugars, those same ideas can still be used. And the whole idea is to limit the amount of excess carbohydrates, excess calories. And so when we talk about bread, for instance, if we talk about 45 grams of carbs per meal, a typical slice of bread is between 15 and 20 grams of carbs. So if it's 15 grams of carbs and all you are eating is bread, then that's 3 slices. Okay? If you are eating bread that's 20 grams of carbs, then that's 2 slices. You'll be missing 5, or 2. You cut it in half. How about that? You can have 2.5 slices. Now, the difference between whole wheat and white bread is what we were talking about before in terms of refined foods. If you look at the package, you can find white bread that has 15 grams of carbs, and you can find whole wheat bread that has 15 grams of carbs, right? And so in terms of the total number of carbs, they can be the same. But whole wheat, right, because it's the whole bread, the whole grain, if you will, then that is said to be better. Okay, so that's one idea there. Okay, very good. I love that question. And sorry I missed that one earlier, Jeanette. Let's see. Here's one. So let's, wow, this is a big one. So blind guy, his wife, their life. So for probiotics and prebiotics, should we consume them through food, fruits, vegetable as part of the healthy diet rather than take probiotics? Love it. Okay. Now I gotta, okay, there, it went away. I had to get over the question there. So let's go back to our principle. All right. So our principle is that it's always better to get whatever we're trying to get in terms of our diet from a whole food source rather than an artificial source. Okay? So when we talk about probiotics, if you will, or things that are good for the gut, if we can eat foods that help the gut, then that's a better way of doing it than artificial, right? The reason for artificial means, and when I say artificial, and I don't want to use that word as not true, right? That's not what I mean when I say artificial. For instance, probiotics are not artificial, but they don't come from foods per se, right? So because there are cases where, and I'm gonna pick a disease like high blood pressure. There are people whose high blood pressure right now is so high that we can't wait for the natural process to bring their blood sugar down, right? So we've got to get it down like right now, like this moment. When they show up in the ER with a blood sugar of 200 over 150 or 200 over 110, 120, right? So we need that blood sugar down right now. So we can't wait for the natural remedy, if you will, to bring it down. Now, once we get the blood sugar controlled, then we can say, okay, what are some natural things that we can try to see if that will bring the blood sugar down and keep it down, right? So that's the other thing. Not just bring it down, but keep it down in a reasonable range. And so sometimes because the diet or the disease or the issue is so far along that we've got to use something, a blind guy, like a probiotic, a capsule, and say, okay, let's do this and let's get the gut healthy. And then now, in addition, let's start eating foods that we think are going to be beneficial. I don't know if that answered the question, but I hope so. But that's the idea. So I always will promote getting things from a whole source rather than getting it from an artificial source. And once again, the word artificial, I don't mean to indicate that as not true. Okay? Hello, Francis. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. And here is a question. Let's see. Anthony loves. Are beans considered carbohydrates or protein? They seem to raise my blood sugar. I love it, love it, love it. Wow, that you guys are asking great questions tonight. So let's talk about this one. And so beans have both protein and they have carbs, right? They have both protein and the carbs in them. So you can get good protein from beans, like we talked about the legumes and so forth. We can get protein from that, particularly for people who are, well, not particularly, people who are vegetarians or vegan and so forth, right? They can't eat meat, so they get their protein from beans. And yes, Anthony, you will find that there are some foods that will raise your blood sugar. There are some natural foods that will raise your blood sugar. So let's talk about that briefly. Our job, and I think I shared with you a couple of times ago that we were driving back from the beach and I was talking to my wife about us doing a show. And she said to me, she gave me a very good phrase, and I wrote it down in my journal here. And it says that diabetes is a process of self-discovery, right? Self-discovery. What does that mean? There are some things that you can eat that won't raise your blood sugar, but if I eat them, they will. Yeah. There are some natural, healthy things that you can eat that will raise your blood sugar, and you will find that you can't eat as much of that thing as you thought you could. Or as you think, all right? I always tell the story that there's a patient that we have that he eats ice cream and nothing happens to his blood sugar. And when I say nothing, it goes up maybe, from 100 to maybe 120, 130. But he eats carrots. And I'm not talking about glazed carrots or carrots that are in sugar or processed carrots. He eats carrots and his blood sugars go up to 300. So he has learned that carrots for him are one of those things that he can't eat a lot of. And you will find that there are, as you look at foods, there are some things that don't fit well into your meal plan. I almost said diet. Fit well into your meal plan that you're going to have to spend time maybe eating less of and find something else. Okay? All right, so very good. All right, so one of the things that we wanted to do in our program is, we've talked a lot about health, and there are so many aspects of health, And one of the things I want to do is I want to share with you a thought tonight. And, I was processing and I want to share an experience. So several years ago, I was in a pretty bad place. And I was talking to a lot of people, and someone recommended that I go away to a conference. And I decided I was going to go. And I went to the conference, but in my mind, I didn't think it was going to do what I needed. Okay, have you ever done that? Yeah, you're doing something and you say, well, this is not really going to help me. Okay, if you've done that, go ahead and put it in the chat. So I said it was not going to help me. And I remember it was in Washington State, and I got on a plane and I flew out. And I landed, and on the way to the airport, to the hotel where the conference was going to be, it was going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so 3 days. 2 days, because we left on Sunday. I flew out there, and I'm driving out there, and in my mind, I said, okay, I'm here, but this is not going to work. And we went through typical conferences you guys may have gone to. And, they've got a big session and they break it up into the small groups and you get to know each other and you talk about why we're here and so forth. And so I was going through then and, Friday night we had a welcome and everybody met each other. And then Saturday we're going through each of the little breakout sessions, and the main session was there and we're talking about why we're there and what's going on in our lives. And I got it all the way through the day. And I remember each time I went to one of the breakout sessions, I thought, oh, wow, because it was an opportunity for a change. And then the session ended and I thought, okay, that's a broken promise because I didn't get anything. And that happened over and over and over through the day. And then Saturday night was going to be the big session because, tomorrow we're getting ready to go home. And they were recapping everything. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to all that they had talked about. And once again, nothing is changing in my head. Nothing is changing in my mind. And then he asked the question. Jason was the speaker. And Jason said, when you go home and you look back to this conference and your family who know you're here looks back on this conference, are they going to be able to say, or are they going to say, that, he went away to this conference, he spent 2 days away from us, and nothing changed? Or will they say, he went away to a conference, and when he came back, our lives have never been the same? And I decided to choose the second. And, let me pull this up here real quick. And it is a thought process. Right? And let me read this quote to you. It says, I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. Let me read that again. I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sail to always reach my destination. So there are so many disease processes and so many things that are going on in our lives. And we can't change some of those situations. But we can change how we respond to the situation. We can change our outlook. We can change our interaction with the situation. And so that's our challenge, right? As we try to get to understand the body, not just this body, right? Not just the heart and the lung and the pancreas and all those things for diabetes, but also as we begin understanding the mind. Right, the mindset that it takes for us to be healthy, taking charge of our health and avoiding complications so that we can live what? Healthy, fulfilling lives. That's our goal. That's why we do what we're doing. Right? So I made a choice. I made a choice at that conference. That when my family looks back, they're gonna say, what, you know what? Yeah, he went away and he came back, and wow, we have not been the same ever since. And they'll tell you that. We've not been the same ever since, for good or bad, right? So it is a transformational thought process. So as you think about situations that are going on in your life, whether it's a health situation or whether it's something else, right? A job situation, a professional situation. When you look back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, are you going to be able to say that you made a choice to look at it differently? Okay. If that resonates with you, go ahead and just put a comment in there. Say yes, right? Say yes, 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 yes. Awesome. All right, so let's get back over here. Blind guy, that's so much. It answered the question. Yeah, he said, okay, that's so much. It answered the question. Thank you for always coming through with the best details. Love it. Thank you, blind guy. And then let's see. Jennifer says, is it true low-fat food is higher in sodium and should be avoided? And also when anything in label sugar is free, sugar-free substitutes with chemicals to make you hungry. Ah, love it, love it. So let me just put a little plug here. So if you, let's see, is that going to be on Friday, Maria? Let's see. We talked about sugar. Right. So on our TikTok, we have a little segment that we did that will talk about sugar. I think that's coming out this Friday. So every Friday, by the way, guys, we put out a TikTok on different subjects. And it's usually, about a minute long. So if you've not already done so, go ahead. And let me just pop this up again since I'm talking that. On our TikTok, every Friday we do that. Every day on our Twitter feed, there are things there, inspirational thoughts and ideas for you about healthy living. Okay, so just go ahead and take a look at those. But Jennifer, to go back to your question, earlier I mentioned that sweeteners can cause hunger. And so those sweeteners, while they do a great job at the time in terms of blood sugars and what we think are calories, because they make you hungry later on, then you end up eating more than you want to or than you should, and so then the weight goes up, right? So that's the issue that we have there with the sweeteners. Very good. And Jennifer says, "Is diet soda bad for you?" Right. So the same idea there, Jennifer, in terms of the diet stuff. Because they have the sweeteners, that can cause hunger later on, and really can, if you're, well, let me go back and let's walk this through together, okay? And I'm not proposing that you go out and eat, I was going to say a brand, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say some chocolate, right? So if you go out and eat chocolate, right, and we say let's be temperate, let's have good control, right, and you eat a piece of chocolate, then you know how much chocolate you ate, how much calories are in there, okay, and you eat it and you're done. When you eat that chocolate that has the sweetener, then the sweetener makes you hungry, right, and we're less able to control hunger, right, when we have to go grab something than we are when we're actually eating something. We made a choice. I made a choice that I'm going to eat that piece of chocolate. But if I'm hungry, I'm going to grab that piece of chocolate, and I'm going to grab another piece of chocolate and another piece of chocolate, and then wash it down with some juice and then some ice cream. You see what happened? Right? So I ended up having a whole lot more later on, right, because of the sweetener. Now, I'll give you my personal experience, and my wife will tell you that I know, or she knows, or one of us knows, when I've started eating something that has sweeteners. Why? Because my appetite is ravenous, right? As long as I'm not doing the sweeteners, right, things seem to be okay. But once I start drinking those diet sodas, then wow, watch out. Okay, so that's one thing there. So Maria says yes. So look at our TikTok coming up on Friday, right? The different names of sugar. Thank you for popping that up there, Maria. So in the chat, that's our TikTok. Okay, awesome. And let's see. Let's see if we have. There was a question that came in, and I'm gonna try to find it because I thought it was a very good one that we see. So let me scroll through here a minute, guys. Not that one. Let's see. Let's drop this one here. That's not the one, but I'm going to answer this one. So what foods can affect my thyroid? So a lot of things that have iodine. Okay. So for iodine supplementation, if you are iodine deficient, then yes, I would recommend using iodine. But if you are in an iodine sufficient area, then we do not recommend iodine unless you have been involved in a nuclear accident. Okay. And not many of us can say that we have been in a nuclear accident. Let's see. And here's another one, right? So same idea. So how does seaweed affect the thyroid? And seaweed, same idea. Now, if you are eating seaweed normally, and when I say normally, I mean, you may have a seaweed salad, even if you're eating sushi and so forth. We want to always be temperate in what we're doing, right? So the average person is not going to get iodine toxicity from eating seaweed. Now, if you have hyperthyroidism, the amount of iodine that's in food can certainly affect the thyroid. And certainly if you're taking an iodine supplement, right, then that can cause a problem. All right, let's see. Here's one. Yeah, so this is the one, sorry. Do I have to drink milk for my osteoporosis? Do I have to drink milk for my osteoporosis? And so osteoporosis is thinning of the bones, okay? And so for my medical colleagues, right, that's a description that I'm giving so that everyone understands. It's not a complete description, but the basically thinning of the bones. And there's been, historically, we say drink milk, right, to increase the bone strength or decrease the process. And the answer, frankly, is that you do not have to drink milk in order to treat osteoporosis, because the calcium, and that's what we're saying, get calcium. The calcium that you get from milk can come from a lot of different places. Okay? A lot of different places. Awesome. All right. Let's see. And so, guys, if you have other questions that we didn't get to, drop them. Drop us a note. Drop us a comment, and please go ahead and like us, like this video, share it with your family, with your friends. Next week we're going to be talking about diabetic neuropathy, right? So diabetic neuropathy, and so this is a big problem that we see, and it involves one of the triopathies. When we think of diabetes, that's retinopathy, neuropathy, and nephropathy. I forgot the third one there. So retinopathy is one that we will be talking about. So we thank you guys for coming out. I'm so excited. I love the questions that you guys make, right? That you guys give, because it really helps me to explain so much to you, right? So we're thankful that you're here. Once again, we produce content. What we do is to help you understand the body so that you can take charge of your health, avoid complications, and live healthy, fulfilling lives. This is Dr. Dwain Woode from Diabetes and Endocrine Wellness Center and the Light Away, educating the public for a better you. And so let's get some music as we get out of here. All right, guys.